I think the YouTube shill tubers have gotten it wrong. The Sony RX1R III is a really exciting release. Let's talk about it. So in kind of a surprise announcement, Sony announced the RX1R III. The little teeny tiny pocketable 35mm full frame legend is back. But this section of the market has really changed recently since 10 years ago when the RX1R II totally broke the market, was a total game changer, very, very unique camera. And while the RX1R II was so cutting edge, the Q, which was a smaller camera than the Q2 and the Q3, kind of stole its thunder because it had that Leica experience around it. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think people want the smaller, more pocketable camera with really good autofocus. At least I do. Now, the RX1R III has a lot of competition. Namely, the Leica Q, especially the Q3 and Q3-43 series, and the Fujifilm GFX100 RF, a medium format, fixed lens, compact, point and shoot, premium, middle-aged, camera nerd man camera. So you don't have to. I made a little chart comparing all the salient aspects of these cameras. Let's take a look. So as you can see here, it kind of looks like the Fujifilm GFX100 RF is your best choice. It's got 6 green positive points, 1 yellow, and 1 red. The Leica Q3-43 has 4 green points, 3 yellow, and 1 red. And then the new Sony RX1R III has 5 green points, good points, 2 red points, and 2 yellow in the middle, question mark points. So as you can see here in my view, the Sony's problems are that, one, the EVF is way underpowered. It's going to be tiny. It's 2.36 million dots. I suspect it's the same viewfinder as the A7CR and A7C Mark II, which is a tiny little tunnel of a viewfinder. I think the Sony RX1R is going to be teensy tiny, unlike the Leica Q3 and Fujifilm GFX, which, those cameras are not pocketable at all. This will be somewhat pocketable, but man, I really do wish they had improved that EVF at least 3.5, if not my baseline, 5 million dots or more. However, then ironically, the back screen on the RX1R III is class leading. It's a little bit better than the Fuji's, and it's quite a bit better than the Leica Q3 and Q3-43s. However, I have to say, Leica tunes their screens really nicely. Their EVFs and screens always look better than other brands. So they do the color and the lighting and the backlighting, it's just much better. So we'll see if the Sony's back screen actually looks better than the Leica's, for example. Like Fujifilm, Sony doesn't tune its back screens, and they always look kind of washed out and sad in comparison to a Leica back screen. As you can see here, all three have premium build quality. Only the Sony's teeny tiny. Sadly, the Sony does not have a joystick, but doesn't get a red mark because the Leica Q3 and Q3-43 also don't have it, sadly. Only the Fuji has the joystick. Although it's kind of a wonky joystick, it's better than nothing. The other big miss here, as you can see, is the Sony RX1R III doesn't have a flip screen. Both the Fuji and the Leica have flip screen like this, and the previous model, the Sony RX1R II, all have a flip screen, so I don't know what Sony was thinking removing this. I've heard they were trying to keep the camera as small as possible with the new, bigger battery. It was harder to put the hinge on, but I think that's BS. I think they're saving it. I think they're going to wait to see, does this RX1R III sell well, and then they'll come out with a new version, the 4, that has that flip screen. I can almost guarantee it, if the camera's a success. And as we go down here, the reason Sony didn't change out that Zeiss lens is it's still really good. It still resolves 61 megapixels, no problem, like it resolved the 40 or 41 megapixels of the RX1R II. Not unlike Leica, who's kept their same lens on all the Q series. Nice wide open aperture, you'll get a blurry background, and it's German design glass, so it's going to look good. And then you have the Fujifilm. This is really the only big knock I have with the GFX100 RF, besides its overall slow shooting speed. And that's kind of reflected in the autofocus here. The Sony is going to smoke the other cameras with autofocus. Both the Leica and the Fuji's autofocus is kind of slow and ponderous. And that's really where the Sony's going to shine the speed. But in terms of aperture, also another way of talking about speed, the Fuji lens is really slow. That f4 hurts, even though it's a medium format sensor. It's really, the GFX100RF is really not a low light shooting camera. And as you can see, for some reason, the Leica's leaf shutter is slightly slower. That can be a real pain on a bright day. I'd like to see the RX100, the RX1R Mark III has 1/4000th of a second like the Fuji does. Some other places where the Fuji just smokes the competition here. It has internal NDs. It's got 2 card slots. The other 2 cameras don't. 35mm focal length. That, in my opinion, that is the focal length that all these fixed lens everyday carry cameras should have. It's the perfect everyday carry focal length. I am so glad the Sony RX1R Mark III keeps the 35mm focal length. That was a really smart move on Sony's part. I think the Q3 and the Q3-43 are like the 3 bears lenses. The 28 is like not quite wide enough, but too wide for regular use, in my opinion. Then the Q3-43 is a little too tight for everyday use. I just want that 35mm. Now, as you can see here, I put sort of for the Fuji, because the way I actually shoot the Fujifilm GFX100RF is that I put it 1 step cropped in, so I get the 35mm focal length. This is a 35mm lens, so I'm effectively getting a full frame 35mm camera when I'm using this in most scenarios. I also use this as an X-Pan horizontal landscape camera. That's a topic for another video. So, especially the way I'm using the Fuji, all of these have the same megapixel, the same pixel pitch, 3.76 nanometers, whatever is umlaut meters. And they all have great resolution that you can crop into. Of course, the Fujifilm has a medium format sensor, but like I said, like most of the time you're cropping in on this for one reason or another, so it might as well be a full frame camera. And then it's got an f4 aperture, so you don't get that extra, blurry background at a wider focal length that you often do with other medium format cameras and lens combinations. And as you can see here, the Leica is the only one with the OIS. That's a miss on the other 2 camera companies' parts. I think Leica has better colors than Fuji. I'm just going to say it right out of the camera. Fuji has more options, and it has the film simulations, but right out of the camera, not doing any editing, Leica, in my opinion, probably has the best color science. At least better, even better than the current generation of Hasselblad cameras. Older Hasselblad cameras, different story, that color science is better, but you can't even get that anymore. It's only in discontinued cameras. So I would say Leica has the best out-of-camera colors possible. I think the Sony colors are kind of interesting here, though, because it's an open question. I've been testing the Sony A1 Mark II, and that camera's really impressed me. I really like that camera. I'll make a whole video about my first impressions. But the one thing that's keeping me from diving in on the A1 Mark II is that the out-of-camera colors are atrocious. They're all wrong. They're off. It's a pain in the butt to fix. It's hard to fix. If I could find a solution to fix it, and put a comment below if you know how, that would really make me lean in the direction towards the A1 Mark II over, say, like a Panasonic camera or even the Leica SL series. Because that's really the only thing missing from the A1 Mark II. Well, that and like shutter angle, some very minor nits, but really the atrocious color is the problem. But it seems like in its promotional materials, Sony has addressed this and says it's going to have new picture profiles, better skin tones, improved colors. So we'll see. I'm not keeping my hopes up. I'm guessing the colors will still be pretty bad. But I would love it, love it, love it if it turned out Sony fixed their colors even more, especially skin tones. And then, I kind of already touched on this, but Fujifilm got its film simulations, best in the business. Leica has the Leica looks, but they're honestly pretty lame. I don't use them. And then Sony, at least the A1 Mark II, has both creative profiles and film picture profiles. The picture profiles have an insane level of customizability, and playing with that, as far as I can see, neither the creative looks or the picture profiles affect raw photos, unfortunately. Which is ironic because, my complaint with Fujifilm cameras is that the film simulations affects the raws, and Fuji's colors and stuff are so good at a camera, I don't want the film simulations to affect it. I just want a clean Fujifilm neutral kind of not even probably punched up, just sort of natural look file, because I think that would be nice on a camera, not unlike the Leica colors. But then the Sony, the out-of-camera colors are so bad, I wish I could affect the raw with these different tweaks. So, kind of ironic thing, still playing with that. Again, if you know how to make the raws change using picture profiles or something, especially the A1 II, and then ideally, or assuming in this RX1R Mark III, I would love to hear that in the comments as well. And then finally, here we are on price. As you can see, you know, as much as people, shill tubers have complained about the price of the Sony camera, it's right in line with the Fuji, and it's still like $2,000 or more cheaper than a comparable Leica camera. So, it is what it is. Elect someone that will make, consumer prices go down next time. What can I say? So yeah, that's kind of the comparison. It's a shame that Sony didn't put that flip screen, put a joystick on there, maybe a better EVF, because then they'd have a class-leading camera. As it is, it's a pretty good comparable camera, and because of its teeny tiny size, I'm still going to check it out. I've got one on pre-order. So some additional thoughts are, first, I got to give Sony its flowers. With the RX1R Mark III, they've really fleshed out their lineup. They've got everything from beginner cameras to a really high-end everyday carry camera with a perfect focal length, 35 millimeters. Yes! They got the A7CR for travel. Like, what a great combo. The RX1R Mark III with that 35 millimeter, then you could put like a telephoto, like the Sigma 90 millimeter or an A7CR, have the same sensor. Great travel compact options. The A1 II, like I said, I'm really enjoying it. So they got a pro level camera. They've got their cinema cameras. They've got the whole freaking enchilada, the whole lineup. The upgrade path is there from soup to nuts. So I really got to give Sony credit for doing that, even though my concern is that, like, now that they've done that, are they out of ideas? Are they out of innovation? I think we've gotten so used to Sony, like with every generation of camera, leapfrogging with crazy new technology. We really haven't seen that since the A9 III, which shares the body of the A1 II, much improved that I'm shooting on right now. But it's sort of disappointing, or it feels disappointing, that the RX1R Mark III feels like a mid-cycle, just like refresh update, recycling old parts, from cameras that have been out for several years now, not that leap forward that you've come to expect from Sony. In fact, it almost feels like Sony had been developing this camera, then paused it, and then unpaused it, because the camera actually compares very favorably to the Leica Q2. If you take a look at this chart here, you can see that, in today's landscape, only that f1.7 aperture on the Q2 makes it better. The RX1R Mark III, with its fixed back screen like the Q2, trumps it in many areas. And is still $600 cheaper new, although you can get used Q2s for like $3,500, $4,000 now. But, it almost feels like they didn't keep updating to keep up with the Q3. It's sort of a shame they couldn't like pause it or just have put in that flip screen. It really just needed the flip screen, you know what I mean? Maybe a better EVF of joystick, but it compares very favorably to Q2. So it kind of feels like Sony is behind a few years now, not leading in innovation and technology and features. It's just a weird place for Sony to be, I feel like. People aren't used to this. And not only will I miss the flip-up screen from the other version, I'll also miss that little pop-up EVF I thought was so neat. I wish they had kept that in there, Those feel like, features that add sex appeal and make it different from the Fujifilm and the Leica. As it is, the form factor is very similar and slightly less sexy, so I don't know. Oh, forgot to mention, they also got rid of the little, manual focus, single point, continuous focus dial like Fuji used to have on its cameras in the front. That's a little bit of a bummer. Leica also has a distance scale on its lens for manual focusing, adding to the Leica refined experience. Neither the Fuji nor the Sony have that. Forgot to add that in there. Having said all that, though, because it's so teeny tiny, that little form factor, plus the 35 millimeter lens, is kind of making me think it might be my perfect everyday carry, or the closest thing to it available on the market. So I put my pre-order in. I'm going to get one. Hopefully I figure out these Sony colors by the time it gets here. Allegedly, they're going to be here by the end of July. We'll see. That would be awesome. I'm going on a trip at the beginning of August, so if I had it, I will take it with me. So we'll see. So that's the comparison. I think all things considered, the Fujifilm GFX 100 RF is kind of the king of the fixed lens, everyday carry, compact point and shoot camera right now in terms of features. But the Leica magic is there. So the Sony's got stiff competition, but I really hope it succeeds because I want to see Sony improve and iterate on this and keep making cameras like this. So what are your thoughts? Having looked at my little chart, do you agree the Fuji is the king? Are you excited about the Sony? Should we all just go out and get Leicas? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.